Christian religion, in its infancy, were men of mean extraction and wholly illiterate. It could not otherwise happen, but that a great scarcity should be experienced in the churches of persons possessing the qualifications requisite for initiating the ignorant and communicating instruction to them with a due degree of readiness and skill. Basically, what he's saying is, in the beginning, it was mostly ignoramuses, people of very illiterate, that were the rank and file of the first Christian movement, the mass movement.
That's interesting, because one thing I came to mind earlier was, the need to actually go into some of these organizations and to, take a look at the people inside there and whatever, because if these have been, power institutions in the past, this would, of course, and obviously, attract people who are, obsessed with power, to have power, pathologic, psyche or whatever, people that have psychological problems also, so it's necessary to actually look at it and try to see if, and that should occur, I guess, within the organization itself in a way. It's a big organization, of course.
Right.
The church, it's so obscure when you say that, but I mean that to actually look into it themselves and see, okay, what are the people here, or are they just another politician or whatever? But again, the need for power, or people who are power hungry, will always search for either if it's politics or religion or whatever, what have you. So,
well, look at the Inquisition again. Why would men who are claiming to be of God and of love, you see, form themselves into an organization to go around and, not only, as I said, it's ludicrous in one way to even want to defend anything that you're about. Whatever gives a person, I'm already worried right there.
Yeah.
But then it goes much further than that. They actually do go and physically start torturing and butchering people and burning people at the stake and all of this kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't see any difference in what's happening today, but that's just me. But see, that happens, as I said. Remember, I was talking about the leaders who either they're possessed. You can look at it as a form of possession, or you can look at it as that they have no self, because they've dissolved their own self into that greater non-self of the God at the top. You're meant to absorb into that being. You're meant to project, onto God. And I'm also indicting Eastern religions as well. It's not just Christianity.
Sure.
So the person who has now no self, I mean, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? That if you have no sense of your own value and no sense of your own self, how are you going to sympathize or empathize with another person? So the torturer
that's right,
is a selfless person. In exactly the same way that Ayn Rand and people who have been trying to put this message out have described. It's a person who is selfless. It's a puppet. A person will do all sorts of atrocities because you have eviscerated his sense of self. He's basically desensitized in a way. I also have referred to it in my work as murdering the self. People are walking around you. Can you believe this? It's an actual crime that has never been on the books. People have murdered their own emotions, murdered themselves, murdered their own selves, but they're walking. And just because people don't have the eyes to see that doesn't mean it's not a phenomenon. Believe me, it is a phenomenon. And one day the world's going to wake up to this and have a biggest shock that they could ever want to imagine. That there's just people walking. I mean, it's something like out of They Live, only there's no glasses to see this. At least in They Live, you find some glasses. In this one, we're still waiting for the glasses. But the fact of the matter is, when you're going to see this one, you're really going to be in for a shock. That there's people out there walking and talking and drinking wine and driving their cars, and they're dead. I know that sounds like a radical fact, but death is not something that just the person is lying completely inert. There is a phenomenon of the living dead, meaning emotionally and psychically dead. It's a phenomenon. It's known to psychologists. So, and this self-hate is the precursor to that, of course. And then the fulfillment of that sadistic urge to murder yourself, then you will create those guards at Abu Ghraib. Then you will create those soldiers who want to urinate on the, on the corpses of the people that they've murdered. Then you will create the generals who will bask in mass murder and come up with all sorts of weaponry, you see, to destroy people. Then you will have all of the inquisitioners Then you will have the Gonzaleses and the Chertovs.
Chertovs, yeah.
These death sorcerers of death. But let's not just point to those people and go, there they are. They may be, in a position of autocracy and dominance, but who is the slave, and why does the slave allow himself to be a slave? The slaver is in your mind. Slavery is in your mind.
Yeah.
These people themselves are slaves. The Pope is a slave. Can you understand that? I mean, can we get around this concept that anyone who is in a position of a hierarchy like that is a slave to that which is above it? They may write all the beautiful poetry. They may dress in robes of silk, and they may surround themselves like dragons with millions and millions and millions of dollars and with adoring legions of fans. But those people are empty.
Yeah.
Because the man who is strong, the true emperor, requires nothing, and least of all the submission of any human being. And there have been such people walking the earth. In fact, their motive is quite the opposite. It's to waken those people up. It's to stand back when those people try to lean on you and let them fall. Because I'd rather have a person fall and perish than I'd have them become dependent. And when we finally have the strength to allow that, we're back to a shamanic paradigm in which we're going to be so vigilant and so vigilant of our self-sovereignty. And have such psychic immunity and such strength that we will not permit people to become dependent in any shape or form in anyone. Well, we have a culture today where people are thinking of nothing else but making others dependent upon them. From the parents onwards. We know about the men who say they'll murder their wives if those wives ever leave. That's an extreme example, isn't it? You think that's the only example?
Oh, man.
Children are dominated. There's not even a personality left. Necrotic thinking. And this self-hate, once you've abandoned this, once you've been cajoled, manipulated, even from a virtuous point of view, but for whatever it might be, when you have lost your selfhood, then you are not a self. And I don't care under what kind of sweet trappings loss of self is presented under. The man who has lost his self is desensitized on a fundamental human level, and therefore the suffering of another has no meaning.
Yeah, that's right.
And this is immediately then what becomes. Of course, that person is going to say, "Well, I was just following orders." But I don't want to get any. The particulars need to be studied individually, of course. But in general, what we're talking about here is the loss of selfhood, which is already was traumatized from past traumas.
Yeah.
And is still highly, and again, if there's going to be a true decline, I'm not saying there is or there isn't, but if in fact we do end up suffering in the next 7 years, in the countdown to 2012, if there is in fact radical negative changes, it is going to be because of this. It's not going to be because of chemtrails. It's not going to be because of
external
things,
force war in that way.
No.
Yeah.